the pace of change is not fast enough. If we are going to get anywhere close to maintaining the global average temperature rise pre-industrial levels to 1.5 degrees or even 2 degrees, we need to act much quicker. And so we've been doing something called a 1.5 degree energy transition challenge. And what we're saying to people is, look, the science is saying we need to halve the end of the decade. And lots of companies are sort of reducing by 1 or 2% a year as their target. So that's just not enough. We've got to be going for 5% reduction every year for the next 10 years. And the same again, incidentally, the next 2 decades as well. You can measure this a little bit by looking at how a fund has voted at the annual general meeting that they own. And the transparent funds will show you vote and how they voted. And what you want to look out there for is you want the fund manager to vote against management a significant amount of the time to keep them to account. Because if a fund manager driving positive change and they vote in favor of management all the time, they're just saying everything's perfect and they don't need to do anything. So, you should look for your fund manager to be voting against, I don't know, to half the time. I think we vote against management about 60+% of the time to them that there's something that they're doing that we want them to do better. So I think engagement is important.
A big debate that's still going on as people are getting more fearful and more nervous about to reach net zero by 2050 by the latest. What do you think about continued investment in fossil fuel companies? I think we've seen some amazing sort of progress at AGMs recently, but the pace of change is really slow with the fossil fuel companies. Are they going to make it? Is it still worth engaging with? What's your sort of view on all of that?
Well, I think there's no right answer. It depends what you feel about it. So you could feel that it's really important to talk to Shell, to BP, to Exxon, to be a catalyst for change. And I think that if you're in, some of these big funds that are what we would call passive, so they own loads and loads of companies, I think your only excuse for owning them will be if you are engaging with them. I think not to be engaging with them in that scenario would be remiss. In terms of what we do and what we think, and it might be that people are fine with that. They're happy to own BP, Shell, all these oil companies, as long as their fund manager is asking them to become something else. What I would say is that I have no desire to own a company that ultimately their days in doing what they used to do or still do really, really well are going to have to end. So I have no interest in, although I have respect for people that are engaging with BP and Shell, we don't invest in them because we don't think they're the right side of the trend. Because the vast majority of their business is still producing something that we've got to wean ourselves off. And we believe that as an investment, that's not a very good idea either, because the amount of money they're going to make from renewables will be a lot, but it won't nearly be as much as they've been able to make from oil and gas. The margins, if you like, will be much lower because there are lots of other people that make renewable, do this as well. So I would say that if you are really interested in renewables, you could go and sniff out a company that all they do is renewables, and you'll probably find that they're better at it than BP, Shell, and all these people, or maybe they're helping BP and Shell do this. So that would be our view. But I'm not wanting to, shame anyone or anything. If climate change is a concern for you, and I'd be very surprised if there are lots of people where it's not, that's a question you should ask your advisor. What is the fund's position on fossil fuels? And, do they own and carbon intensive industries like that? Or are they, and if so, Are they engaging with them? What are they asking them to do? Or maybe you would prefer to have more of a purist view and go, actually, I've got no interest in being invested in businesses that essentially regulation is going to try and get rid of, bluntly.